I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around me, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713 through the 21, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low-key. I'm sipping low-key and honest, fine rider. I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, oh. I get those goosebumps every time.
Good evening.
What the hell? That was a surprise.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Loading Mag NUFC away days, the final away days of the season. To see out the season, we are on the beach. We're officially on the beach. The sun's coming down. We're on the beach. Happy days. Even the yellow top's out to signal farewell to the 22-23 season. And of course, got the main man with me, Brandy and Blaze, Mr. Chris Hall. How you doing, my man? How's things?
All good, mate. Yeah, all good. Another really busy day in work today, but I've got 4 days off now. So looking forward to that, spending a bit of time in the sun with the kids and the wife. So that'll be lovely. What about yourself, Pete? How are you?
Great. Half time for me.
Yes.
Week off, happy days. although you know, anyway, the family have been unwell. I'm the only one that survived so far without being ill. So fingers crossed, I'll make it through next week unscathed. But yeah, looking forward to a few days off with the family. However, I will be taking a slight detour from the family on Sunday because I'll be heading down to Stamford Bridge to sign off the Newcastle United boys after a fantastic season. And yes, some may say it's the magic cat. It's actually my boy's magic hat. And if he saw me, if he was awake right now, he would kill me. So I'm going to swap. I do have hair, by the way. I'm going to swap and go back to the original. But look, yes, we are back in business. Just want to get your thoughts before we get the main man in from that Chelsea podcast. Chris, what's your approach to Sunday? How are you approaching Sunday? We've already got Champions League, fourth in the league. You happy?
Oh, delighted, mate. Absolutely delighted. Things couldn't be better. I think from the ultimate professional, which Eddie Howe is, I think we will approach this game and we'll want to win it. However, we know Nick Pope's gone under the knife, so he's trying to. Was it his finger? There was something wrong with his finger, I believe. Yeah. So he's gone under the knife, so he's going to be unavailable. I mean, part of me thinks, anyone who's got any knock or any slight, injury in any way, should be left out, because let's be honest, whether we win, lose or draw, it doesn't matter. We've got top four. But obviously we want to go to Stamford Bridge and make a good impression. I'm looking forward to seeing Elliot Anderson. I hope he gets a run out. I said this a couple of weeks back, when with Sean out and Willock out, that it's nice for Elliot Anderson to experience these big games at big clubs. So it would be nice, for the likes of Sean Longstaff, the likes of Elliot Anderson to get a run out. But I suppose we'll just have to see. Yeah, it's a funny game because really there's no pressure on us and there's no pressure on Chelsea, because Chelsea can't go any higher than what they are now. We can, but obviously it depends on Man United's results. So it's got the potential to be a slightly meaningless game, but I'm sure both clubs will want to win. And the weather's going to be fantastic, and I'm sure the ale's going to be flowing, and you'll know all about that, Pete, on Sunday when it all kicks off. But it's nice to not need anything from this game. Said it ages ago. I didn't want to go into this game having to go to Stamford Bridge and pick up something to ensure we get top four. The fact that we've got it already is more than good enough for me. Like I'm happy.
Yeah, definitely. I'm the same. I'm the same. Free hit Sunday. Go out there, and some of those boys, as you mentioned, and we'll talk about it later on in the show, can go out there and show their worth. That's for sure. And as you quite rightly said, Chris, segued us nicely into, the fact that it might be the same, very much the same for Chelsea. They can't move in anywhere on the table. Nothing really significant to play for. But as always, let's get the opinion of the opposition. And it's a pleasure to welcome back in from that Chelsea podcast with hopefully a good network this time. I definitely think it is. It's Nick Williams. How you doing, Nick?
Evening, everyone. I'm glad, firstly, that the people can see my face, unlike last time. We've resolved that technical difficulty. I have to say, boys, that intro, I was getting hyped. Listening to watching that little montage. Oh,
everyone says the same, mate. Daz, one of our loaded boys, is responsible for that solely. He puts together some fantastic intros, and he hasn't failed on that one. And I think everyone in the chat loves it too. So yeah, I'm not surprised you get hyped by it because we do every show. You always see us at the back, and we're always fist pumping as it's going.
Yeah.
But look, wanted to get your opinions first and foremost, and I'm just going to come out and say it to you right now, like. How do you assess this Chelsea Football Club right now? I know we're on a time limit here, but what are your thoughts?
So, obviously, after this weekend, I've then got to get round to doing the season review podcast, and I've got obviously predictions made at the start of the summer. But I've genuinely got, aside from looking back and laughing at that horrendous prediction, I've got no clue where to start on it because it's just an absolute mess. Like when I last spoke to you boys, it was relatively normal by Chelsea standards. Granted, we'd already sacked the coach, but it was still felt relatively normal then. It's been just a mess, really. And the departure of Graham Potter after the Aston Villa game, I don't even know what day that was. Feels forever ago. That was just an admission of defeat that this season was over with, that it was done. And it's been a pretty just grim couple months just seeing it out, really. Nothing to play for. Unsurprisingly, best performances came in that Champions League quarter-final against Real Madrid when there's something on the line. Results in the Premier League or performances in Premier League have been pretty dire. So the general consensus among Chelsea fans is come about 25 past 6 on Sunday evening, just one of jubilation that we're free of this season, and we can hopefully start fresh and just try and move on and forget this absolute horror show of the season.
Yeah, I can imagine it's been a difficult one. And look, I don't mean to put more pain onto you, but look, that table does not read well if you're a Chelsea fan. And Chris, with seeing Chelsea in 12th place is like shocking, really. But from your perspective as a Newcastle fan, like they haven't been great this season at all, have they?
No. I think we all expected much more from Chelsea. Graham Potter came in, didn't he? And he done a fantastic job at Brighton. Everyone was just assuming that Potter would kind of, starts off where he left. Brighton, he'd come into Chelsea, fix things, gets things all sorted. Tuchel left. I was quite surprised that Tuchel left, if I'm honest. But maybe. Well, I'm sure Nick can enlighten us as to why that was and why he thinks that the decision was made to get rid of Tuchel. But I suppose after that transfer window as well, I think we were all expecting of his agents. Now hindsight's a brilliant thing, isn't it? You can look back and go, too many players, too many personalities. It's not good. Not good for the dressing room, I would imagine. But if you'd asked everybody like the day after the transfer window shut, I don't think anyone would have said that. I think everyone was just thinking, "Oh my God, Chelsea are going to really go for it now. They're going to really try and kick on." And unfortunately, it just didn't happen. I suppose from if I was in Nick's shoes, from a Chelsea fan's perspective, I totally get why he can't wait for the season to close. Because I do think we will see a different Chelsea next season, and I think all it takes, there's all the raw materials are there. You know, you've got all these fantastic players. It's just finding a system that suits those players and getting rid of the ones that you don't want anymore. And who knows, maybe potentially adding one or two extras in. I know there's one player who we've spoken about a few times, Pete, who may be through the door already. It's a rumor, but it's a strong rumor. So you know, look forward to talking about that later. But yeah, seeing Chelsea in 12th does feel a bit odd, but I wouldn't get too used to it because I think next season they will be back.
And, you know, going on to what Chris has talked about is that he expects, from a Newcastle perspective, for you to bounce back, Nick. You know, what are your thoughts about next season now? Because look, that's where you guys will be looking ahead to. And within what you think you potentially could do next season, how confident are you that this man can get it right? Now, look, I have to say, you know, looking at this table here as well, is that your net spend over the course of this season is far outweighs anybody else's in the league. You can see Chelsea right at the top. The eventual champions, Man City, ended up in profit. It's absolutely madness. But you guys have spent a hell of a lot of money, and you haven't benefited. So it goes back to my point. How confident are you that Todd Bowley can get it right this summer for you to bounce back, as Chris said?
Well, I mean, it surely can't get much worse from this season, can it? I mean, well, you know, we'll see. Hold my beer, etc. Look, it's tough. Everyone got excited, understandably, about the signings we made in January. And for what it's worth, I think some of them we've seen in Enzo Fernandez and Noni Madueke, clearly very promising and have been some of the better players.
Yeah.
But it's going to take time for them to actually bed in. And it's also, I also feel it quite hard to judge so many of these players when they've worked under 4 different coaches this season. Even, you know, that includes obviously Bruno Salta's 1 game interim spell. They've worked under 4 different coaches, very different coaches, different tactical ideas, etc. Like, I feel it's quite hard for me to form a really strong opinion on quite a lot of these players we built. Look, obviously the ownership, they could not have really done much worse.
Yeah,
I can't fault their ambition. Like, you see that money spent, the player sign, I can't fault their ambition. I think just unfortunately, it's just been probably a bit too gung-ho, and they've almost gone about it too fast. When I compare it to, I mean, you guys is a decent example, new owners, you guys, you've spent, but you've not spent ridiculous money. And I still feel like quite a lot of your squad that's achieved top 4 was there pre-takeover. There's still a decent amount, and you've just gradually built, and you've not gone and made these like mega signings.
Yeah,
you've been smart. So I think it's a case of what we need to do. We need to trim our squad, because it's impossible. I've no manager like working with 30 odd players. That's ridiculous. You're setting him up to fail because he's got to leave people out. People are going to be unhappy. And how do you do organized training games? You're going to have like so many spare parts there. So I think one of the biggest things for Chelsea is the outgoings. They need to just say goodbye to a few players. Now, some of those players, unfortunately, you know, might be going with who we do not want to go. And then there are others that just definitely do need to go. But look, I think it's just one of the things. If Chelsea announce Poch, it would be nice to announce Poch. We've heard that like it's all agreed, it's all done. But until I see that like visual announcement, part of me still just wonders, Poch is watching this going, is it too late for me to get out of this? Because it looks like a bit of a mess. But as soon as we get him in, and I mean get him in for pre-season, again, it's just for simple things. Players who are not going to be here, do not take them on the pre-season tour to America and just take up minutes that you could be giving to having a look at maybe young players to include in your squad.
Oh no.
What we did about contracts were terminated about a month after that pre-season. So it's just pointless doing stuff like that. Look, obviously I know talking about there's going to be a lot of stuff about contracts and these 8-year deals that Bowley has handed out. Interesting ploy. I kind of get it. I also kind of think, player on an 8-year contract, that's pretty comfy to have and lean back on, especially when, you know, some of these guys are yet to prove themselves.
Yeah.
Look, it's tough. I don't I kind of like to think that hopefully Burnley will take a bit more of a back seat. There's more of a structure in place compared to when he first took over and he was doing sort of a lot of heavy lifting at the start and doing like acting sporting director. And I'm like, Todd, mate, you like, no, that's not for you. So no, it's just, oh yeah, it's a lot. But I do have confidence, but at the same time, like that's just probably my attitude. If things do not start well, if preseason does not start well, if the outgoings we need to do are still not out the door come the season time, who knows? It's going to be tough. But I think with Pochettino, hopefully that he can be the man to take us in the right direction, and we'll just see. I've got honestly no clue what Chelsea can do this season because before the start of the season, who had Arsenal even in the top four, getting into the top four after how they ended last season, let alone challenging Manchester City? Who had Manchester United really being back in the top four after what we saw last season under Ranić? Who saw you boys doing as well as you've done? Who saw Liverpool having the season they did? This season's been really hard and throwing a World Cup, and it's just been a bit of a madness. So I feel it's really hard to tell because if Chelsea get it right and they get the right play, they get players out the door, and Poch gets to work with this squad. There's good players in this squad. There's talented players in this squad. Just get them. Just get a tune out of them, and who knows what could happen. If we'll see. I don't have huge expectations for next season, but we'll just see what happens.
Interesting, very interesting. Look, you've talked about some of your players, so I'll run through some of them because I don't think you mentioned who you actually thought might stay and might go. So let's go through just a few of the players that you've mentioned to see whether they're going to be here next season or not. What do you think about this man, João Felix? Is he going to be there, or would you want him to stay? Would you want him
I have really mixed feelings about this player. He can be really fun to watch, and in a season where Chelsea have not been very fun to watch, he at times has been just like something nice, just out of the absolute darkness and the mess. But at the same time, there's also games where he's just anonymous, and I don't think he's even assisted yet. And I don't know how many people are into their expected stats, but I don't even think he's his expected assists are even like one yet. Like his numbers, like he's just such a weird player. But again, what I said earlier, it feels really hard to judge him because I'd like to see him actually in a stable team. What is quite telling is you see how well Atletico have done since he's left them. How they're scoring more goals, how just in general, how they're forming as a team, they've improved. João Felix is not a priority to keep at Chelsea. He is one of those, if you get all your other positions sorted, then he is one to address. But again, I'm kind of just thinking like, could take him on another loan just because it's just so I can see, just sort of treat him like, when you sign up for all these accounts and you need like free accounts, whatever, just, put your email in, just do that for another season, just get him on another trial run and just see how he does. Cause he's not been great. He's not been awful. He's probably been one of Chelsea's best attackers. The bar is absolutely on the floor for that this season. So I don't know how I feel about him. I'm sort of just like, if he was to come on loan again next season, I would kind of be okay with it. Equally, if he was not to come back, maybe it's just what it is. Maybe it's just like a summer romance, whatever. That's all it is.
Interesting. I'm going to go to a player that's been there for a while now. And there's been talk about him potentially leaving. Ruben Loftus-Cheek. What are your thoughts about him? Some circles of Chelsea fans are not best pleased that he could be leaving. There's links with him and an AC Milan recently. What are your thoughts about Ruben Loftus-Cheek?
Ruben Loftus-Cheek is one of those where if he goes, it's for the best of his career, and I can't really hold it against him or, fair play to him. To come back from the injury he suffered in 2019 and to basically, gone through that period relatively injury-free since then and actually been a useful player for Chelsea, that's quite, laudable considering how everyone was talking about him after his loan spell at Fulham. Right after that injury, he's a player, keep around in the squad, yes, but equally for the sake of his career, if he wants to go, absolutely no ill feelings. It's a real shame with Ruben that he could have maybe achieved more at Chelsea, but injuries, have their say. But he is a very, he's a good player, and he gave, I think, a lot of, goodwill with the Chelsea fans.
Interesting. Okay, I'm going to go to a player now who is a bit like Marmite.
If Lewis was here, he would be going off.
He spent a lot of money on this guy. Chris, we've talked about him before. Kai Havertz.
We have.
He is very much like a Marmite. But what are your thoughts on Kai Havertz, Nick?
Oh, as I said, if Lewis was here, he would be going off because he is not that big on Kai. Kai Havertz, again, he's been at Chelsea 3 seasons, crikey. He's still living off that Champions League final goal. Fair play, not a bad thing to have done. It's winning goal in a Champions League final. That's some serious achievement right there. But we kind of look at him and I go, for a Premier League season, I mean, I think he's our top scorer with 7 goals this season, which, we can get into it. Chelsea's own competition with Erling Haaland, who will score more Premier League goals this season. We're leading by 1. So fingers crossed we can get over the line. But Kai Havertz, a very talented player, a player who I have strong doubts will reach that potential, reach what he could at Chelsea. In the Champions League, in the big games, he's a player who shows up. Sent us through against Borussia Dortmund this year in the round of 16. Goal against Real Madrid in the quarterfinal last year. Goal against Lille in the round of 16 last year. Won us the Club World Cup last year. Like, he's a player that has actually won Chelsea and been quite some big given some big moments for Chelsea fans. But a lot of the time in the Premier League games, we're kind of just going, oh yeah, Kai Havertz just sort of played today, didn't he? Yeah. He didn't really do much, the odd nice thing here and there. He sort of sometimes just exists for 90 minutes on a football pitch. And you're kind of wondering, did Kai Havertz really play? It's a frustrating one. I think he could if he was to go to Chelsea and he was to thrive in the Bundesliga, say Bayern Munich, that would not surprise me. And I don't think that would be a failing of Kai Havertz or Chelsea, really. Some players are just suited for certain clubs, certain styles. And he would just be one of those. Kai Havertz, I don't know what his future is going to be. I like him, and I will always have a lot of love for him because he won us for Champions League, and those moments do stay with you. And he has given Chelsea fans some great moments. But he's a moments player. He's not someone you can consistently rely on. Yeah. So if he was to go, so be it. It's how long 3 years? We've given him time. I know there'll be questions about, well, we've not played him in his best position. What is Kai Havertz's best position? We're still asking this question 3 seasons in. We don't quite know what he is. We don't really know how to get the best out of him or how it's just whatever with Kai Havertz. If he goes, fair play, he was still worth a transfer fee because he won us number 2. He won us the Champions League. So he goes, it's just a case of what could have been, really, just what could have been with Kai, like a lot of signings with Chelsea.
He's Nick, and I don't know if you agree with this, Pete, obviously you tell me what you think as well. He's one of those players, isn't he, where, to me, and I don't know Kai Havertz positionally, I don't know exactly where he should or shouldn't play, but I know that he's not a striker and I know that he's not a winger, and he's probably like an old-fashioned number 10. But this day and age now, predominantly in the Premier League as well, a lot of clubs are playing with like a 4-3-3. Yeah. And that kind of leaves him a little bit in no man's land because he's not a central midfielder. So unless you're playing like a 4-2-3-1 or something like that, I struggle to see where Kai Havertz fits in your team. And there's a number of players with that problem. It's not just Kai Havertz, but I agree with what you're saying, Nick. Again, moments of brilliance, like that goal he scored against us, the 1-0. Where he brought it down, the touch was incredible. Again, Dan Burn, at that momentary lapse of concentration. Brilliant touch from Havertz, and he's got that skill, and you can see he's a high level quality player. But there's just something lacking, and I can't put my finger on it. And I think if Chelsea were to be offered 40-50 million, I think they'd take it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Again, it's one of those, if Poch is the man to come in, then there's also can't be going, one last go of Kai Havertz, maybe, who knows? But then we've got Christopher Nkunku coming in. If Joao Felix stays, this is the point. We've got so many players for these positions, so you think surely one of them's got to go.
The last one or last couple just before we move on, you've just talked about Christopher Nkunku, and Chris, you were referring to him earlier. I know you didn't name him, but I knew who you were referring to. Is that you got Christopher Nkunku coming in who can play as a frontline striker, but predominantly off the left. But you've got a lot of players off the left at the moment. And one of them that's barely kicked a ball, which shocks me, is Raheem Sterling. Like, you guys spent a lot of money on getting him into the club, more so on wages than the actual fee itself. But he's barely kicked a ball. Like, what is the situation with him? And do you see him having a long-term future at Chelsea?
So Raheem Sterling. It's just such a weird season. He started off quite well under Tuchel. He's probably one of the better players at the start of the season under Tuchel. Scored in Potter's first game. Just went quiet. He's had like moments in games. We played Nottingham Forest the other week 2-2, and his first goal is the type of goal you'd exactly expect him to score. You know, being in the box, finishing off chance. And the second goal is the type of goal we've seen him do before. Brilliant play, sit a defender down and curl one into the top corner, which we've seen him do so many times. He's just such a weird player. And again, he's also, I don't know, is he? I think this season has gone on forever, but so much stuff. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah, that happened this season, didn't it? But I think he had an injury at some point this season as well. So that could be why he's maybe not played as much. He's an interesting one. Honestly, like, it's one of, if an offer was to come in, I think you consider it just because of his age, but he's one of those, he's had one season. He is a good player. Poch, I think, could get something out of him. So we'll see. As I said earlier, it's quite hard to judge lots of these players, certainly the new players, in their first season when they've just had so much upheaval in the background.
Definitely. And the last one for me before we move on to the next section is Conor Gallagher.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought you were going to break my heart and maybe talk about Mason Mount. Okay. That's
no. To be fair, that is very much an obvious one in that that he looks like he could well be out the door. But Conor Gallagher, the reason why I mentioned Conor Gallagher is because he has been linked with Newcastle as a potential signing this summer. Why has it not been successful for Conor Gallagher? What has stopped him being the success that he was expected to be? I mean, he broke in at Palace on loan, got into the England squad, come back to Chelsea, but never really hit the heights. From your observations, why is that?
I mean, it's a big step up from Crystal Palace to Chelsea.
Yeah.
He's being asked to do different things at Crystal Palace to what he's doing to Chelsea. For Conor, for what it's worth, and it's the bare minimum in football, but I can never fault the guy's effort when he puts on that Chelsea shirt, which, you know, I can arguably do for a lot of other players in this team. It's just like, what is his role at Chelsea? Where does he sort of fit into this Chelsea side? He's not a bad player, and he will go on, I'm sure, to have a good Premier League. He could go on and have a good Premier League career. I'm just not sure if it's at Chelsea. Right now, his role at Chelsea would be one of being a squad player. And if he was to be a squad player, you know, get Poch, you know, just coach him well, etc. He could be a handy player. He is a good footballer. It's just a question of is he really right now ready for Chelsea? And when you're a club like Chelsea, you've got all these promising players. It's going to be difficult, and not everyone can make it. He's not had a bad season. I don't think he's had a bad season. He's just been like, he's okay, and he's just sort of been in and out of the side. And it's quite hard, and he's had like substitute appearances. It's really hard to. I just don't really sort of know how I sort of judge Conor Gallagher's season. He's been like decent. He's probably been one of the better players under Frank Lampard since Frank Lampard's come in, albeit again a very low bar. But it's just like under Potter, he was sort of used almost as like this finisher role, sort of come on the 60th minute mark in games, just energy, sort of just runs around the pitch like a lunatic. He's decent. Like, he's a good player. And I mean, I don't, you know your squad better than me. I obviously guess midfield is an area you're potentially slightly light on. So I think he'd be a good player for you guys. And I think, you know, we've seen Eddie Howe, what he's done to a load of your players, what he can do. I think he would be a good signing for you guys, especially if you've got Europe next season. As I said, I think he is a good player. I don't know what you guys read online when it comes to how Chelsea fans view him online, but again, take that with a pinch of salt. What, you know, online fans say about some of these players, like, he's going to be held to standards that, like, and the way, and because stylistically is maybe not the most aesthetically pleasing, he's also going to be sort of viewed in a certain way. He's a decent player. I'm kind of chill with him staying at Chelsea. You know, he'd be a good squad player to have, and you know, he's one of the few that seems really committed to the club. So if he was to stay, absolutely no issues. Equally, if there was a good offer to come in and he was to go, absolutely fine as well. It's just one of those, really.
Pete, this is what you were referring to earlier. I just had a quick look online. I named as many as I could, and then I just had a quick look online just to back up any I'd missed. But You can see there Sterling, Ziyech, Hudson-Odoi, Mudryk, Pulisic, Madueke, Felix, Havertz. So you've got potentially, I know Havertz maybe not classed as a winger, but you've got eight wingers, if you like, for 2 positions. And this is the problem, isn't it? I mean, have I missed anyone there? By the way, Nick, or are they all your wingers? Would you say?
No, obviously Hudson-Odoi's been on loan at Leverkusen this season, and that loan's not gone great.
And he's back, isn't he?
Future. Surely he's not got a future now. Yeah,
I think he'd probably be gone. Ziyech, PSG randomly wanted him in January. That was one of the funnier January stories. Why PSG would want Hakim Ziyech in January, I have no clue. But anyway, he was meant to go. He was meant to go, but we forgot to do all the proper paperwork, so he was just left stranded in an airport. Poor bloke.
God.
So I think he's our leading assister this season as well. I think he's got 3 assists, which might be one of our leading assisters. Like the bloke's like been nearly out the door. Honestly, it's a joke. He should be gone in the summer. I'm just looking about this. Sterling will be here next season, I think. Ziyech should be gone. Hudson-Odoi, I'd be shocked if he's still here. Mudryk should still be here next season. He needs some media training. Christian Pulisic should be gone. Noni Madueke should be here. Joao Felix, who knows? Kai Havertz, who knows? And I wouldn't really classify sort of Kai Havertz sort of in that winger role. And not really sure I'd classify Felix sort of in that role either. But yeah, I'd like to think that Ziyech, Hudson-Odoi, and Pulisic from those 3 are well. And it's honestly, Callum Hudson-Odoi is again like a great shame. Just a case of I don't think we particularly managed him greatly, but also him suffering an injury, and we've just loans just not worked out. And it's just one of those things in his time has sort of just passed him by a bit. But yeah, oh god, I honestly like Christian Pulisic came on the other week for 5 minutes against Manchester City. I was like, oh yeah, Christian Pulisic does still play for us. I forget. Yeah, we need to clear players out, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Great list there. Oh my God, Jimmy's in the chat.
Jimmy's coming on me again, man.
You knew it. I said before he'd even come on. I said to Nick, I said, "Oh, someone's just made me laughing because Jimmy was already before the show started putting comments in about you." But welcome, Jimmy, into the chat. And if you're watching it back from earlier on, from half an hour ago, Adam McCarthy just put yes. I will get the magic hat back on at some point. That's for sure. But look, just before we move on to the next section, just your thoughts, Nick, on Newcastle. Champions League football.
Mate, I could talk about you boys. I could talk about you boys for a long time. So if you need to cut me off, just go for it. I remember talking to you.
Come on.
I know, but I remember talking. So I should all state, because one of my best mates is a Newcastle fan. So I'm honestly, I'm delighted for him, and I'm delighted for you guys. I'm delighted for everyone in your community that you've had to experience this season, and you've got Europe to look forward to. I mean, Joe Linton and the Bernabeu, what an image that could potentially be. Look, I remember when I came on in November, I think I said, you were in the top 4 at that point, and I was like, top 4 is definitely on. You know, I think there was maybe a little bit of ambition of a title charge. It was a little bit ambitious from some of you guys, but top 4 was definitely on then. And you've been a brilliant team. It would have been nice if your defense could have not, leaked the goals it had recently, because Kieran Trippier was an absolute force in my FPL side throughout this season. But look, I know there's obviously, for the outsiders, people go, the owners, like big questions around them, and I'm not going to get into that here, but just for you guys, the fans who have been, your club had probably, I mean, Bemi, your club probably felt like it wasn't yours for probably a long time, that this club that you love, the heart and the soul, had been completely ripped out of it, and you probably barely recognized it. You kind of loved it because it's your club and it's your thing and it's what you know, but you probably also were just like, it killed you probably a little bit just seeing where you were. So to see your transformation, to see what you've done, if Chelsea are going to have a bad season, like, I'm absolutely happy that it's you guys taking our place in top 4 rather than one of like the usual candidates. I'm delighted that for Eddie Howe, because like there was, before he took Newcastle, there were questions like he was a man who got, like, for all the good he did at Bournemouth, he was also known as the guy that got Bournemouth relegated. Yeah. Right, that was what was a big thing held against him, and it was like, he's a nice guy, but is Bournemouth his level type thing? I think he'd even, before Bournemouth, he'd struggled at Burnley, etc., and got far there. So there were questions. He's come to Newcastle, but I just see, and it kind of sort of, this season what you've had sort of reminds me a tiny bit of what we had in Frank Lampard's first spell here, where there's just a real connection between your players and your supporters and your whole club as a whole, it just feels like you're all pulling in the same direction. There just seems so much love and so much positivity. I mean, I see sort of these like Joe Linton shirts with some of your fans, like you have it all with his face just splattered everywhere on the shirts. And I remember, because, you know, the beauty of TikTok, when you were playing your Carabao Cup final, there was an interview with a Newcastle fan. I think it was Sky Sports interviewed him, and he'd been supporting Newcastle for 60 years or something. He said, you know, he asked if he was nervous. He was like, no. He would before the cup final. He was like, no, because he was like, this is the start of a journey. And this is the start of a journey that you're on. And like this part, the part of the journey, like I look at what Liverpool achieved with Klopp and the success they achieved is great. But that journey they went on to get them, for a Liverpool fans, must have been so incredibly fun to experience. And it's kind of how I'd like Chelsea to kind of go about things. Chelsea in my life just been used to hire and fire, instant success. And it's a brilliant feeling. But the connection at times has maybe been missing at points. And I kind of look at what you can do now with your club. I mean, what I would say to people is I almost feel like from an outsider's point, you're ahead of schedule in where you are. I don't think anyone expected top four. So I would kind of just be like, if you were to potentially dip out maybe next season, not get back, not be in Champions League, you know, that's not the end of the world, because this season has also been incredibly bizarre. You thoroughly merit your place in the Premier League table where you are. You've been superb. You've gone toe to toe with the big boys. I mean, I feel it feels a bit unfortunate the timing, sort of that Carabao Cup final just sort of seemed like your form you're in the league prior and sort of after that a little bit just suffered a dip. There just wanted to be a little bit of a hangover from that, and also in the lead up to the cup finals, like so much excitement about it. And then you just almost like I don't know, the occasion almost got a little bit big for you, but you bounced back really, really well from that, and you just finished season strong. I mean, I was out in London. My mate was running the marathon a few weeks ago, and I was coming back from training. I'm seeing Spurs of Newcastle 5-0 up against Spurs. I'm like, oh, this is wonderful. This is absolutely wonderful for me to see Spurs getting beaten. But no, I think you guys have been brilliant, and I just say just enjoy it, because you know you didn't expect this, and this ownership, what they've done for you, this group of players. Like, I mean, again, I look at someone like Joe Linton, who was probably a bit of a joke prior to Eddie Howe coming in, and now he's absolutely loved. And I see it, and it's just great, because I know you guys think of yourself as like, you know, Newcastle, like you're a really big club, you belong here. And I know a lot of people kind of throw back and go, oh, you've not won a trophy for so long. These clubs are really bigger than you, etc. But just as like a fan base and just as a community and as a team, it's just nice to see you guys just doing well. I'm quite happy for you to, you know, I'm happy if you said there's no feeling of like you're a rival. This pains me in any shape or form. I've got no ill feeling towards Newcastle United. I'm happy, you know, if you guys said you two on the channel, great guys, your community that you've got on YouTube, great. And I imagine you're all just absolutely buzzing. You can't wait to get your passports out for your various trips to Europe next season. You're going on a European tour, etc. Like, it's going to be great. And the thing is, this point now, part of football, it's obviously like we love to win games of football and we'd love to, you know, win trophies, and it's great, but it's also about the memories you make with your mates. Now, I know what it's like for you guys and all the guys in your community here, but I remember you've had some brilliant nights at St James's Park, brilliant weeks at St James's Park this season. You've had some brilliant trips on the road with Newcastle this season. Then next season, you're going to make more memories. You're going to be, you know, be playing in Europe next season, making so many like memories. Even if, I mean, who knows? Because I think you'll be top four in the Champions League, so you could get a pretty brutal group. But you could be playing the likes of like Real Madrid, like Bayern Munich in like the Champions League. That's what it's about. The Champions League, you want to play against the absolute best. Yeah. This is what it's about. Like, you go, I still kind of pinch myself, go, I mean, we played Borussia Dortmund this season. That's the first time Chelsea played Borussia Dortmund in a competitive fixture. I'm like, I've seen us play Borussia Dortmund. That's a club that they're quite cool. Like, I've seen us play like AC Milan this season. Yes, it's not the AC Milan of old, but I'm like, that's AC Milan. Like, I'm seeing Chelsea play AC Milan. I'm seeing, and this is me who's like accustomed to Chelsea, you know, 2 European Cups. And I'm like, this is still like really cool. So for you guys to experience this, and there'll be a whole generation of fans who have not seen Champions League football at all. And also, there's a lot of fans who wouldn't even have seen any form of European football because you've not played any form of European football for what, a decade or so. So it's been a long time. So I think absolutely, you know, from the outside, watching you play, watching your team, and it's, you know, it's not a team on paper where you go, that's an outstanding player, but it's a team that's cohesive, that shares a common goal, wants to achieve that goal, And anything you achieve with this group of players is going to be so special because you've been on a journey with them yourselves and you can feel so connected to them. So look, I just enjoy the ride because, I mean, you never know like how good it's going to get. So just enjoy it because this is probably the most exciting time I can imagine is being a Newcastle fan in a long time. So just enjoy the ride. I know you're now going to be, I don't know what it's like for you guys. You probably started, I mean, you probably started stressing about the top four this season. Like that's what's that? What are you doing stressing about the top four? And that's probably something to get used to for the seasons to come, stressed about other teams' results in the battle for Europe, etc. But I honestly, my message to you guys, just enjoy it because you don't know when these opportunities are going to come along. You've got a great fan base. You have loads of mates you go football with. Just enjoy it because these are the memories that you make for life and you don't forget. And that's what football is. It's about the memories you make along the way. And this is the start of something I think really exciting for Newcastle United. And I think, this is a club that continue doing the right things and they are gonna, they're gonna be moving in the right direction. They're gonna start upsetting some people. In a few years' time, I might not be as friendly as I am towards Newcastle. You might be annoying me a bit more. You might be taking trophies of us, but right now, enjoy the journey. You're doing all the good things right, and just enjoy it.
Jimmy put in the chat earlier, he was like, "You're too nice," and Jimmy, I think Jimmy's very much used to blood and thunder with regards to Newcastle United. So someone coming on and talk about it so positively. To be fair, we do get most of our guests that are really positive towards Newcastle, but yeah, Chris, we're well aware that these away days may well change in a year or two's time if we're successful. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think the love will be there too long, especially as you say, if we start cementing our place towards the top of the table and we go and win, win the odd trophy. I think people may feel differently, as Nick suggested there.
Definitely, but as always, it's nice to hear those positive comments about our club because we have come from the absolute bottom of the barrel under Mike Ashley to now be fighting Champions League, and it is a fantastic achievement. Yeah, that's for sure. Look, I think it's about that time we look at some stats.
Evening, lads.
I like magic.
Evening, Keith.
Double O Stato. I was going to call you the predictor. Is what we called you from last week because you were bang on the money. Not a Bond villain, not this time. Not Doctor Doom, but the predictor. How are you, Keith? How are things? Are we still living in a Champions League bubble after last week, or are we firmly thinking ahead to next season?
Bit of both, to be honest. Bit of intrigue, really. I don't know about you guys, but it feels weird going into the last game of the season and just not really having to worry about or have any concerns about anything. Yeah. We're not going to drop out of the top four. We're not even bothered about third place because we're in the group stage. So it's weird not having a thing to think about with going into that last game of the season. So you've got one eye onto the future. I mean, I've already had a look. Apparently the draw is going to be on 31st of August for the Champions League group stage. So you're already looking forward to the future there, really, aren't you? And I'm sure, obviously, everybody at the club will be as well, won't they, really? And all the fans as well.
Hopefully we'll have some representatives there when the Champions League draw is made, which would be a nice change. I'm sure we'll get a lot of publicity for our ownership being there, watching the draw live. But we've got our last game of the season away at Stamford Bridge. I'm not looking forward to some of these stats, Keith. I'm going to be honest, because our form there over the years is not great. But what have you got for us this week, mate?
Strap yourselves in because this is going to be a bit bumpy for both sides. Because I'm going to mix it up with the present and the past. And so I'm going to start off with some head-to-head. Then I've got players, and then I've got some manager stats, and then I've got some general to round off. So Newcastle's all-time record in this fixture, played 172 games since 1905, won 55, drawn 39, lost 78. So it's a significant advantage there to Chelsea in the history there. Head-to-head in the Premier League, played 55, won 14, drawn 12, and lost 29. And again, a lot of these figures here have been inflated over the last 10 years or so when Chelsea have been at that peak. But the head-to-head stats in the Premier League at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea have only lost one of their 27 Premier League home matches against Newcastle. Played 27, won 1, drawn 6, and lost 20. Chelsea have scored more goals in this fixture as well. 83 goals compared to 48 goals to Newcastle. Chelsea have got the better defensive record in the fixture, 26 clean sheets compared to 11 clean sheets for Newcastle. And Newcastle have only won 3 of the last 15 games against Chelsea, 3 wins, 1 draw, and 11 defeats. I promise you it gets better in a moment. Since the last one at Stamford Bridge with 2 wonder goals from Pape Cisse, Newcastle have lost 10 games in a row in all competitions at Stamford Bridge, scoring just 3 goals and conceding 24. They've not scored in the last 3 games at Stamford Bridge, and Kieran Clark was the last player for Newcastle who scored against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge in 2019. Moving on to the managers, Eddie Howe's managerial record in games against Chelsea. He's managed 13 games. He's won 4, he's drawn 1, and he's lost 8. So he's averaging about a point a game against Chelsea. Frank Lampard, I've got some stats here about Frank Lampard's managerial record against Newcastle. He's managed 6 games, he's won 3, and he's lost 3. Lampard as well, unfortunately, since he's returned to Chelsea, he's lost 8 of his 10 games as manager of Chelsea. He's lost 8, he's won 1, and he's drawn 1. And his aggregate record as Everton and Chelsea manager this season, managed 30 games, he's won 4, he's drawn 7, and he's lost 19. So that's 19 points from 90. So he's not really had a good time of it this year at all there, Frank, unfortunately. Raheem Sterling, now I don't think correct us if I'm wrong, I don't think he's going to figure on Sunday, but he does have a good record in games against Newcastle. He's scored 9 goals in 19 games against Newcastle. Kieran Trippier, he's created 110 chances for Newcastle in the Premier League this season. And that's the most for a Newcastle player since 2003-2004 season, and the second most by a defender since Leighton Baines for Everton back in 2012-13. 160 chances Leighton Baines created when Everton were Everton were certainly in better straits than they are now. A bit about the keepers here. Martin Dubravka. He has 2 clean sheets in 4 appearances in domestic competitions this season. He's also got 2 clean sheets in 8 games he's faced against Chelsea. And Kepa Arrizabalaga, he has 9 clean sheets this season for Chelsea. So he's one of the better performers, I guess, for Chelsea this season. And Newcastle, some general stats here. Newcastle have scored 4 goals or more in 8 Premier League games this season. Now, that's as many times that they've managed to do this in the previous 10 Premier League seasons. So that just goes to show you, again, going back to 2011-12, how well they've done, really, and how brilliantly they've done this season. Chelsea are guaranteed to finish in the Premier League's bottom half for the first time in 27 years. And that, believe it or not, was when we were going for the title and we finished second. I love it and all. Chelsea are winless in their previous 16 Premier League matches against sides above them in the table, drawn 4 and losing 12, including each of the last 5 games now. Chelsea set a new club record. I'm sorry about this, of 16 defeats in a 38-game Premier League season when they were beaten at Old Trafford last night. Chelsea have scored 36 goals in 36 league games, and that's the worst return in the top flight since they managed to score just 31 goals back in 1923-24. I'm going to be finished soon, don't worry, lads. Newcastle are looking to complete their first double over Chelsea since 1986-87 season when they won 3-1 away at Chelsea with two goals from Andy Thomas and a goal from Peter Beardsley. And Newcastle have kept 14 clean sheets this season, only keeping more in 1993-94 season and 2011-2012 seasons, where they both got 15 clean sheets. Nick Pope, he's been in goal and he's got the 14 clean sheets this season. Only Tim Krul managed to beat that with 15 clean sheets in 2011 and 2012. And that rounds off the stats.
Great stats as always, Keith. Top man. And you know what? Round of applause for your stats over the course of the season. They have been absolutely spot on, mate. And it's been a pleasure to have you on away days, that's for sure. Some not good stats there, I've got to be honest, for Newcastle, but one or two positives there. One or two have asked for you just to repeat the goalkeeper's name again for Chelsea. What's his full name?
I think we should just go back to the recording of the last away days in November to hear us say it then. Kepa. There's a reason. I think there's probably a reason why people refer to the keeper as Kepa a lot of the time, don't they? You know?
Yeah, that is true. I think people just wanted to hear you say it again. That was all. But
or as someone in the chat said, "Don't worry, Mendy will be playing in goal at the weekend."
I think my feed when I said it as well. I'm sure my internet feed dropped out and was dropping back in.
Definitely, but like I say, great stats as always in there. As we always say, stats are there to be broken. So hopefully we can do exactly that at Stamford Bridge on Sunday, but let's wait and see. Just before we look at the game in a little bit more detail, I just want to look at the tactics. I'm just going to try and work it out and get it on the board now. Nick, correct me if I'm wrong with regards to what you think the starting lineup might be. There might be some changes in there. I've gone for the team that started against Man United. But who would you change in that team for Sunday? Would you make wholesale changes, or would you keep it how it was? What's your thoughts?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, this game doesn't matter, does it? Silva didn't play, so I guess you'd probably put Silva in. Wesley Fofana had a shocker last night. I'd keep Fofana in. Azpilicueta, put Trevor Chalobah to right back.
Oh right, okay, yeah, got you.
We'll take Azpilicueta out. We've got Silva and Fofana there. Enzo Fernandez will play in midfield. I mean, yeah, kind of keep him in. It'd be nice, we didn't let him go away with England, so it'd be nice to actually play him. And I guess Connor's there, and then Madueke, Mudryk, Havertz. I mean, I'm trying to think else. It'd be Kai. Yeah, it could be. I mean, Felix could start. Who knows? He scored a nice goal off the bench yesterday, but who knows? Honestly, yeah, it could be something like that. I guess I've got no clue what Frank's doing. I'd probably. I mean, yeah, you've taken Madueke out. That would, I'd hope we don't do that. But again, it's Frank, so who knows what will happen. Mudryk could start. He might not start. Whatever. Yeah, it's interesting what we'll see there. But yeah, it's probably a similar-ish team. Close. I'd say it's the closest team. I don't know. Frank could literally just chuck it all in. Who knows? But I'd say that's the team we might see on Sunday.
No, fair play. And we've kept Kepa. Arrizabalaga, I think is how you pronounce it, but I could be wrong. But the Newcastle team's the interesting one, because I tell you what, on this left-hand side here, we've got injuries galore. Joe Linton, Willock, both ruled out. Lascelles is out for the season. Richie's out for the season. So we're down to the bare bones with regards to who could potentially start. And this is the team that I've gone for. It's almost, pretty much the team that started against Leicester on Monday. But I'll ask you boys really quickly. Chris, would you keep with that formation, that starting 11, or would you change anything? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, do you know what? It's hard to predict, Pete. As we said at the start of the show. Oh, excuse me. That was hard to predict as well. Sorry. Yeah, as we said at the start of the show, I think it could literally be anything. Personally, I like the look of that lineup. I think it'll probably be something similar to that. Who knows? Do we see Harrison Ashby get another one out? Do we see Anthony Gordon get another one out? I mean, could see Matty Target getting another one out at left back. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, in terms of putting out our best team to go and win the match, I think I wouldn't disagree with that starting 11 at all, mate. You could even argue that maybe Maxi will get a run out, but who knows? But yeah, that based on form and based on what Eddie Howe's been picking, for the last few games, I would say that's probably the team that he would pick.
Interesting. Keith, what are your thoughts about Newcastle's team? Would you change anything with regards to the starting lineup?
Yeah, I'm sort of like inclined to agree with Chris Hall's comments. Really, I think it'd be a good at some point, maybe not start, but it might be a good, with nothing really riding on it, to give Harrison Ashby a run out, maybe late on in the second half or something like that. To get a glimpse of him. I don't think he'll tinker too much with that back four. Like, I don't think he would, bring Shaw into the midfield or anything and then put Target in. So I think that would be as good as gets, really. And then maybe in the second half, you want to bring Gordon on. That's what I would say with that, really. Get that pace into the second half. Does ASM figure at some point as well? Do you think if you need?
This is what I was going to throw in, the potential of ASM starting, and maybe an Isak or a Wilson maybe starting on the bench. I'll put Isak on the bench just for argument's sake because he was there as well. But can any of you see that potentially happening now? He's had a few games to get back up to speed.
I mean, Isak took a little knock, didn't he, in the last game, and he got a bandage around his leg. Are they going to risk him? Or would they just think, you know what, let's just leave him out and get him ready for the summer? What's the point in potentially, a reoccurring problem? It could be that they just go, do you know what, just throw ASM in.
Definitely. It could well be the case. He's back fit now, ready to play. It could well be that they throw him back in, but that midfield looks like it's going to be the midfield that takes us forward, because there are literally no options. And the only option off the bench is this man, young Miley, who I would love for him to get a run out at some point in the game, hopefully if we're in a winning position. But like I say, these starting lineups for both teams could all change, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. And it should be really interesting how it kind of works out, really, because it could, like I say, the dynamics of the game and the attitude, I think, for most things with regards to Newcastle players could be the difference in terms of how we approach the game. But one player that wasn't in your squad on Thursday, Nick, was Raheem Sterling. Do you think he's going to be in on Sunday, or is there an injury that I wasn't aware about?
Yeah. Honestly, is he injured? He might have a knock. Honestly, don't know. I didn't listen to Frank's presser today, so if he might have a knock, I'm honestly not sure. Because he played against Forest and he was good, and then he didn't, and he featured against City and he was decent. So I don't know. Maybe he just rested for United. Honestly, I'm not sure if he's got a knock. I don't think he has, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, it was interesting just to see that he wasn't in the squad at all.
I mean, we said earlier, we have a very big squad, so we one of the issues we've got to deal with.
That's true, definitely. Look, we're getting towards the end of the show. We'll end with a few questions. I think there's a few that's been put towards Nick's way, and then we'll get into the old predictions. So, what have we got questions wise or comments wise, Chris?
Yeah, we've got a few good questions here for Nick. Just before I start with the questions, I just want to say a big shout out to Tampa Toon with his super sticker. Tampa Toon, thank you very much, mate, as always. He says, good evening from the Champions League spots. I've heard that before somewhere, and I think I know where. Nice to hear a pleasant opposition fan. A huge contract at LFC and MUFC's salty fans. Yeah, very true, mate, very true. But yeah, listen, Tamtoon, thank you very much, mate. Really, really appreciated. So thank you for that super sticker. And thank you as well to my daughter, Summer, who's subscribed. So she's now part of the Luda family. I thought she was already, but now she officially is, which is great. This question come in from Brett C. And Nick. This is an interesting one because this is the first I've heard. He says, interesting quote allegedly from Frank when asked about the one thing he'd change, and he said the way the team train. Have you heard that, Nick?
Ooh.
I think, yeah, he said, like, I think the level in training is not been good enough of a level required or something like that. I mean, Frank, you are the coach. Is that not your job to kind of sort out? I don't know. But again, this season's been a mess. These players are fed up. Everyone's fed up. It's a tough one. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to hear. It's given he is the one, in charge on the training pitch, but again, this season is lost. He's got, as I mentioned, he's got 30 odd players to deal with. It's not an ideal situation to try and work through. But yeah, slightly interesting quote to hear earlier.
Nick, just really quickly, because we didn't touch on Lampard earlier. Like, what do you make of him as a manager? Obviously, you guys love him as a player. He's a legend at your club. But as a manager, like, what are your honest thoughts about him as a manager? Because I can tell you what my thoughts are.
Yeah.
Chris, I think Chris and Keith, you could probably.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's probably not the most complimentary, which is completely understandable and quite a sane feeling. He's really weird because his first year at Derby, I think, was decent, right? I mean, he gets into the playoff final. They lose the playoff final. I mean, it's Derby. They quite often lose in the playoffs. No biggie there. He comes to Chelsea, gets us top four, brings in these young players, and no one's expecting us to get top four. I mean, we get to an FA Cup final and we lose. Okay, we've lost a lot of cup finals in recent years. Like, the first 2 years at Chelsea, like his first year as manager, like, fine. There's obviously clear flaws, defensive issues. Like, we got that. But there was clearly signs of, like, a promising... there were signs there that he could be a decent coach. There were nothing was saying he was going to be outstanding, but certainly was decent. His second season at Chelsea starts off kind of fine. We walked through our Champions League group, top that. We are temporarily top of the Premier League, albeit it's it's COVID, so it's all it's not really an accurate table because of whatever. And then he just has a disastrous last month, really, and it all falls apart. And it was and we're left 8th, but we're only a few points outside the Champions League places. We get back in quite quickly. I think he kind of came out of Chelsea still in a relatively good position, to be honest, because he got us top four when no one expected us to. Like, all the media was saying we just lost Eden Hazard. We have a transfer ban. No one was saying we get top four. He'd done that, and his first spin was actually just really fun as a supporter because he was playing with young players. We were sort of exciting, pretty naive, but it was just fun to watch. You fast forward to Everton. I mean, it's a difficult situation he takes over when he comes in. They're 16th, but they're clearly on the slide. They stay up just. They win some games, beat some of the big sides. They do all right. He does the job he's brought in to do there. Okay, fine. They obviously lose Richarlison in the summer and don't really replace him. Also lose Anthony Gordon to your lot. They start again. I feel like they started this season fairly well. Like, I remember they drew with Liverpool 0-0 at Goodison, and they probably could and should have won. There was a point where they were actually quite solid. They had decent defensive numbers, which are Frank Lampard having good defensive numbers. And then it just all fell apart. And I'm not at Everton, so I don't know where it went wrong. And it just sort of seems that Everton experience and how it sort of ended is sort of scarred him, just left him, because the decisions he's made at Chelsea are not the ones that he made the first time around. It's a manager who seems almost scared and unsure of himself. Yeah. And almost trying to reprove himself, but he's going against everything that did. Back to Chelsea?
Do you think he's gone into management too soon after having that Everton experience?
Maybe, but I mean, it's a tough one because this Chelsea interim spell, again, I feel really hard to judge. He took over when we were 11th in the Premier League. The Premier League season was gone for none of those games really mattered. We weren't fighting for anything. And then he was brought in the hope that, we could beat Real Madrid. No, whoever we hired was not getting us past Real Madrid. But it's just been frustrating because he's not really played sort of these young players and done the things that made his first spell exciting. So it's quite hard to really judge him as a coach. What we've seen basically prior to him, what we've seen certainly this season of Frank Lampard has shown nothing to suggest he is a good coach. But prior to this season, while he was not, I don't think anyone sort of viewed him as an outstanding coach. I don't think we sort of viewed him as sort of the joke or sort of a meme he's almost become sort of, this season. Like, I mean, what was it? 3 wins, and there was a point we won like 3 of his last 20 games in management or whatever, combining Everton and us. It's a tough one. I think he just probably needs to get a. Well, I also say, Rank, he's taken some very like risky jobs at Derby, who we see where they are now as a football club and their ambitions. Comes into Chelsea with a transfer ban. Then he takes on Everton, which is probably one of the worst run clubs in the Premier League and has been one of the worst run clubs in Premier League for years. And they could also go down this season. So it's also quite tough. And part of me also think if you put him in Frank Lampard in a more stable environment, maybe, like, I don't know. Like, clearly the signs are he's not shown any progression as a coach from his first, when we first saw him first time round. He's clearly not going to get offered another Premier League job now. He'd have to dip down into the Championship at best or maybe lower. It's a really interesting one. And look, him coming back, when he came back, I wasn't expecting much. I thought we might have got a few better results, but I honestly wasn't expecting much because I'd watched this Chelsea team struggle under superior coaches to him. So yeah, I don't know. I'm probably not as harsh as lots are, and I completely understand why they are, because his win percentage is, I mean, Keith in your stats said, or whatever, in your stats, right? Like his records of like this season is genuinely abysmal. Was it 19 points from 30 games across the 2 jobs? Yeah. But yeah, it's a tough one. I think, maybe he just needs to just go away and just see what it does, because I mean, it's just tough. And maybe go to the Championship and just sort of rebuild. Maybe if he can try and get away from the spotlight a bit, just who knows? I mean, you said Steven Gerrard did great things at Rangers, ended Celtic's dominance there, which is no mean feat, comes to Aston Villa and they're nearly in the relegation zone. Like, it's just really hard. Just certain clubs favour different things, and Rangers was clearly a good fit for Gerrard and Villa wasn't. So who knows? Maybe he needs to go elsewhere, but it's a tough one. I certainly think if Frank was to go into punditry, Frank, I quite like listening to you on like BT Sport or the soon to be TNT Sports. So, just get back on there with Rio and everyone else, and it's no hard feelings, and you're always welcome out. There's no right ill feeling towards like Frank really from sane people. Like, you're not going to use an interim spell when our season was already over to actually hold against him or find reason to try and undo his legacy or whatever. Like, he's Frank Lampard.
No, to be fair, I don't know if you boys could hear, but I could hear it yesterday. They were chanting for Frank Lampard even deep into the end of the game when you're already losing 4-1. So I don't think that will ever dwindle down his legendary status. What else you got for us, Chris?
I've got a few more. So, Nick, I'm sorry to bring this up, mate. I know you didn't want to talk about it before.
Oh, no.
What's the question? Peter Watt says,
boo! Stop the stream! Stop! No, you're breaking my heart. You're breaking my heart. Honestly.
Does Nick think that Mason Mount is worth the price tag that everyone is saying? And I think the price tag he's referring to is around 40-50 million. I think that's
absolutely he is. Absolutely, he's worth that. That's a steal. Chelsea spent 62 million on Mark Cucurella. 50 million on Mason Mount is a steal.
Yeah, but is the £300,000 a week wages that you want a steal? Right?
Yeah, we will see. We'll get on. I mean, wages. I've got no clue what's going on there. Honestly, when Juan Mata, the last transfer from Chelsea to break my heart was Juan Mata when we sold him back to Manchester United in 2014. Eden Hazard, I'd been resigned to going for years, so that didn't hurt. But Juan Mata hurt me, and Mason Mount leaving Chelsea Football Club. The boy who assisted the Champions League final winning goal, who's come through the academy, been one of our better performers since he's broken the team. Oh, that breaks my heart. I mean, I don't know what the wages are. He's obviously asking for a lot of money. Look, to be fair, he's probably one of Chelsea's lesser paid players because he's not signed a contract since, making his debut whatever in 2019, whatever. So he's probably one of the lesser earning players. And he's absolutely right to want more money. And when we've given the likes of Koulibaly and Sterling some of the money we have, I don't really blame Mason Mount for wanting the money he's asking. But obviously, it would be nice if a compromise could be reached. But then again, we just hear so many different things from both sides. We've heard that there's been no talk since February, and then we hear that they're really making an effort, and we hear that he's been offered an 8-year contract. Remember the stories that he was offered like a really lucrative 1-year deal. I mean, why would he sign a 1-year deal? That's just bizarre. It's really tough one. I mean, I think it's quite telling the clubs that are linked with Mason Mount, your Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United. I think that probably is an indication of the quality of the player. that certain sections of Chelsea's online fan base would do good to recognise. The treatment of him in general, ever since he's come into the team for Chelsea, has been one of the most bizarre things I've ever experienced as a Chelsea fan. But yeah, I think he is. Obviously, like, I'm a bit biased. He's probably one of my favourite players of a Chelsea team. But if Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool get him, they're getting a very good player who will go on and achieve great things in the game. And I think it's also would set a very bad precedent for Chelsea as a football club moving forward to lose one of your better performers over the last 3 years. And it's not the president you want to be as a football club where you're losing your players to your rivals. That's not a good look. As I said, if it is for, I don't know all the prices, but say 50, 55 million, what they're offering, that's a good deal on a player who also is pretty durable. Like, his injury record is phenomenal. He's played a lot of football, which has probably not helped him in terms of performances this season, but he's basically just been run into the ground a lot, not just with Chelsea, but with England as well. But yeah, he's a good player, and you get him like in the right system, right environment, like, he'll do well there. He's a very good player. Like, he's been one of Chelsea's better players for the last few years. He's not like, he's been Chelsea's best attacker, and he's not really even like, you wouldn't really class himself as one of those in the forward line, but he's outperformed all of them since he's been here. Like, he's a good player. It would leave me very sad, and it would take me a while to get over, and it would kill me seeing him in a shirt of United, Arsenal, or Liverpool. So I hope that a miracle happens.
Not to put the knife in anymore, but it's looking like from reports today that Mount is set to go to Man United as an addition to Rice, apparently going to Man United, because they're
who knows? Apparently Arsenal are getting Rice. Who knows? Yeah.
Apparently Rice and Mount are best mates, so it's a case
they
of
are
signing those boys together at Man United. But who knows? Chris, what have you got for us, fella?
So I've got 3 more questions. So I'll start with this one. Tacoin Free says, question for Nick: are the fans going to go to the game planning to stay for any kind of lap of honour or appreciation, or do you think you'll see the opposite? Will there be booing, protest, or boycotting, or how do you see things at the full-time whistle?
Good question.
Oh, geez, I don't know. I guess there's part of it that's going to be saying goodbye to Frank Lampard, having the opportunity to say goodbye to him that we didn't get to as a player or as a coach the first time round. That's probably the main part of it for fans. I don't think there'll be a protest booing. That just depends on that lap of appreciation is going to be one of the worst things ever. I reckon it could be similar to, I think it was at Spurs the other week after they lost to Brentford. Like, I don't think people are going to really be staying for a lap of appreciation. I think people are going to be like, get me to the pub. And that's a better use of their time. So yeah, I don't think there'll be booing or protest. Like, it's been a really poor season for first season for the new ownership, but I don't think we're at the stage of protests. I just think it's just a disappointing season, and people just go and just full time whistle goes, and we're off to the pub.
Yeah, no, I get that, mate. I get that. Now, I've got 2 final questions, but I'm going to ask all of these questions, and they come from a very familiar name, which I'm sure you'll all recognize.
A legend.
Yeah, legends, absolutely. So, Mr. Keith Roll. Keith asks, lads, who do you want to get promoted to the Premier League from either Luton or Coventry? So I'll start with you, Pete. Who do you think is going to get promoted, Luton or Coventry? Just to appeal them.
For me, Cov. I've got to say Coventry for a couple of reasons. One, my nephews and nieces are from Coventry, so there's a family connection there. Secondly, obviously, Callum Wilson's a Cov lad, so I think there's a sentimental reason there. But equally, potentially one of our summer signings, Mr. James Maddison, is also from Coventry. So again, there's that second connection there. So for those reasons, and the fact that historically they have been in the Premier League and been a Premier League club and have created moments in the Premier League, and for all the turmoil and rubbish that they've had with the ownership and the stadium and all the rest of it, playing games at Northampton. I saw them play. It'd be nice to see that them come back to the Premier League. Not against Luton come back to the Premier League at all, coming up to the Premier League, but Coventry have got something already of a connection to the Premier League. So they're my choice.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I think I'd like to see Coventry come back up. Being a bit of a was it a romanticist? It's nice to see Coventry back in the Premier League. However, Luton first time round, it'd be some story if they were to make it. And I would be intrigued to see that away end. Like, it fascinates me. For the away fans getting in between houses, I think that'd be quite bizarre. So I'd like to go and visit Luton if I could. What about you, Nick? Are you saying Luton or Coventry?
See, Luton. My issue with Luton is that tiny away end, and that will be an absolute nightmare to get tickets for. Like, that is, it's kind of why, like, Bournemouth, like, I don't really have much aside from having Bournemouth tended to get results against us, but they've also got a tiny stadium. And without trying to sound too snobbish, like, quite like for more than about 1,000 of our fans to actually be able to go to watch their team play away from home. I'm also know that I'm going to get so fed up of hearing about the story about going through people's back gardens or whatever to get into that Luton away, and next season that is going to just get become just a running joke at some point, and I'm going to get incredibly bored and just get over that. So I'd probably say Coventry. As I said, Luton or Coventry. I don't really mind, but I'd probably just say Coventry just because it's a bigger stadium and it's
You get the whole back to you get the whole back behind the goal. So we when we were in the Championship, we had Coventry, and when we had like Nile Ranger and Shodami Obi and players like that, I remember being in the away end, and you get the whole section behind the goal, and I can't remember how much it is in terms of fans, but it's a decent capacity at that back end. And so when you go away from home, you want to be able to take as many fans as possible, and like you said, Nick, you're quite right that the capacity for away fans is very, very small at Luton, similar to Brentford, similar to Bournemouth. You want to be able to take as many fans as possible. So another reason why I call the best ones. But sorry, go on.
No, mate, no. And Keith, what about yourself, Luton or Coventry?
I'd be happy if either came up. Really, certainly from who was in line to come up, but certainly, Coventry, Newcastle have got a great record against Coventry in the Premier League. It was always a fixture I'd look at confidently. I knew it would be a game, but Newcastle usually always ended up in the top when they were, up and down. And I mean, Luton, it's going to be a funny one, because imagine if they do win that game tomorrow, it's going to create an instant headache for the Premier League, really, because the ground isn't fit for purpose for Premier League football. So where they're going to play their matches, apparently they've got Watford Vicarage Road, which is the nearest suitable ground, really, and that's like miles away. So that situation, it's going to be very intriguing, and if that were to happen, that predicament, because we're playing at somebody else's ground for your whole season, it's not going to work, is it, really?
No.
So it'll be best stuff all around if Coventry do come up, but it's a game I'm looking forward to tomorrow, certainly, over the weekend, to see what happens.
The £170 million game, they're calling it. That price rises every year, but 170 million.
It really does.
We're
buzzing off 100 million for playing in the Premier League, and the additional 50 million for Champions League football potentially, but 170 million for one game. Wow.
Crazy. And then last one from you, Keith. Even lads, who do you think will be relegated on Sunday? What do you think the scores will be for Everton, Bournemouth, West Ham, Leicester, and Leeds, Tottenham? So Pete, starting off, what would you, maybe you don't have to say the scores, but who do you think is going to join Southampton in being relegated come 6:30 on Sunday?
If I'm thinking with my head, it's going to be the two teams that are going to be relegated along with Southampton are going to be Leeds and Leicester, in my opinion. If you're asking me for my heart, when I say heart, just any sort of feeling, Leeds and Everton. I think, I think realistically from what I wanted, that would be the only possible outcome.
Yeah.
Leeds and Everton. But I do genuinely believe that Everton will beat Bournemouth, which means that they'll stay in the league, which means Leeds and Leicester go. Look, I'll be honest with you. If either one of Everton or Leicester go, I'm happy. So
yeah,
it don't
I
really matter.
think Leeds are done. I think the only way Leeds can stay up is if they win, and the other two would have to either draw or lose. And I just can't see both drawing or losing.
Oh, is that right?
I think so. Yeah. I think Leeds can stay up, but Everton's got to fall their way. It could even be that is it Everton have got to lose and Leicester have got to draw. It's something like that. There's a possibility, but it's looking very unlikely for Leeds because they've got a really bad goal difference as well. I think if Everton draw, Leeds can't stay up because Leeds would have to win like 8-0 or something stupid. But I think I've got a weird feeling. I don't think Everton will win on Sunday, but
Really?
yeah, I've just got a weird feeling. I think the pressure will get to them. I think it'll be too much. I think they'll crack. Because everything's resting on this game, and they're going to play Damari Gray up front. And I just don't.
Is Dominic Calvert-Lewin
Yeah, he's out.
injured?
Yeah, he's out.
Ooh.
And I think it's huge, mate. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's out, and Nathan Patterson pulled up. Bearing in mind they haven't got Coleman, which means they're going to have to play Mason Holgate right back. They just. I think the pressure's going to get to them, but I do think they will still stay up because I don't think the other two teams will do enough. So I'm still going to say I think going down is Leeds and Leicester.
To coin a phrase is just put but don't you want to steal Maddison? We'll get Maddison anyway.
We'll get him anyway.
Whether Leicester stay up or not, Maddison will leave Leicester, shall I say? Not that we'll get him because that's not a guarantee. But he'll leave Leicester regardless of whether they stay up or not. So that's some of the factor. It might be that we pay an extra 5-10 million for him, or a team does. But yeah, sorry. Go on.
No, you're fine, mate. You're fine. Nick, what are you saying? While you're talking, I'm going to see if I can find this league table. But what are you saying?
What do I think will happen? What my hope is that Leicester and Leeds score early, so all three are on 34 points at one stage. That's my first hope because I want it as tense as possible. Because obviously Leicester's goal difference I think is better than Everton. So if Leicester go ahead early, they're out of the relegation zone, and while Everton are drawing, because that Leicester point against you is now looking potentially quite huge. So Leicester, with their superior goal difference to Everton, go above, and whilst it's 0-0 and Goodison Park, just get a little bit tense, just keep that dragging out a little bit. Leeds are playing Spurs. Spurs, do they want Europa Conference League football? I don't know. Fun stat for you: no player scored more goals on the final day than Harry Kane in the Premier League. So he will, if he bags in at goal. Spurs also, have, on the final day, have caused some teams some pain. They did us a huge favour a few years ago, beating Leicester when we messed up at Aston Villa to get us into fourth spot. So Tottenham, you never know what they will do. Leeds, I think, are probably gone because I think Leeds need too much to go their way. And even if Leeds were to win, I just don't think enough will go in their favour elsewhere because they need Leicester to not win and Everton to lose. So I do think Everton will stay up though, but as I said, my dream is that Leicester and Leeds score early, so it all becomes a bit tense. Leicester, I would have had no issue with going down, but their fans really bitter about Ben Chilwell, and it kind of makes zero sense to me. So I'm kind of like, know your place. You can go down now.
Remember that FA Cup final, Nick?
Yeah, you were quite fun. Yeah, you were quite fun. I quite liked you for like a little bit, but you're kind of becoming a little bit annoying now. So if you were to go down, I have zero ill feeling if you do go down. I think Everton will just about do it because also we're talking about Leicester beating West Ham, but West Ham are in decent form. They've got players who are wanting to, potentially play themselves into a Europa Conference League final. I don't think Moyes would go weak for that because there's a big gap between that and the Europa Conference League final, or big if they don't play that game of the weekend. So yeah, it's tough. I still think Everton will do it, but as I said, as long as Leicester and Leeds go ahead early and all three are on 34 points, so it can be somewhat interesting and something to keep an eye on while I'm somewhat interested in what Chelsea are doing.
Yeah. What about you, Keith?
I think Leeds are going to go down. Unfortunately, because Leeds, when you think of how they came up and after all them years out of the Premier League with sort of Bielsa as well and that brand of football he created, I think it's unfortunate the way in the last year or so it's unravelled for them, but they're going to go down. And the fixture that told me they were going to go down was when they got hammered off Crystal Palace 5-1 at Ellen Road. You know, the raucous atmosphere at Ellen Road when they went a goal up and then let those goals in. So I think Spurs, they'll probably win about 2 or 3-1 with Harry Kane scoring. I think, you know, Leeds might get that goal up, but they'll not be able to stop conceding. So they're going to definitely go down. And I agree with the previous comments as well. I think by hook or by crook, I think Everton will get some form of result. Maybe not a win, but they will get some form of result at Goodison. I think if you're looking for a man to guide you out of that position, and the best man for that sort of position is Sean Dyche, isn't it? Really grinding out a result, and that's what Everton will do, and it'll keep them up. And it's sad to see Leicester go down as well, really, because they were a story, they were a fairy tale, but it's just gone a bit like Blackburn all those years ago. It's went horribly wrong for Leicester as well this season, season 2 far.
I will say, for all the script writers out there, it does kind of make sense for Jamie Vardy does score the goal to keep Leicester City up, given his whole story with Leicester. But, you know, that's what the script writers want. But, yeah, I think it's in Everton's hands. I mean, but again, Bournemouth, though, nothing to play for. Very dangerous. They've lost 3 in a row. Gary O'Neill went 1, lose 4 in a row. Very dangerous. They could, you know, they've got nothing to fear. Everton under pressure. Who knows?
That's true. Goal difference, just really quickly. Leeds are on -27. Everton are on -24, and Leicester are on -18. So that could be
there as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there a little bit of I don't want to say needle, but is there a little bit of history with Bournemouth and Everton? Did Bournemouth have to go to Goodison on the last day of the season a few years ago to get a result, and they didn't get a result? They went a goal up, but they didn't get a result.
They won. They did end up doing their bit, but Villa got a point at West Ham, so they still went down.
Right. Yeah. That was against Bournemouth, I think. Against Bournemouth. Yeah. That question's done, or is there?
If there's any more, if there's any more of your listeners want to ask, feel free. But
yeah, no, we don't have any other questions.
I can't remember what the guy from Del Monte looks like, but I imagine he wears a hat like this. So yeah,
it's similar. It's similar.
If anyone's asking or late to the show, we're on the beach. We're on the beach. Look, away days. He's on the beach. We've got the beach hat. Chris has got the summer shirt on.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Look, we're happy days. Look, even Keith's got a holiday haircut. He's ready. We're on the beach, guys. This is happy days for Newcastle.
T-shirt weather as well. We're all on the beach today.
There you go. So we've all made a special effort tonight. We're on the beach. Happy days. The summer holidays are here for Newcastle United, and we're enjoying every second of it. Crack on. What else have we got before we go to predictions?
So where else are we here? Bobby's saying, if I'm Spurs, I put out a reserve team to try and avoid the Conference League. It's a good point. Do they really want to be in that Conference League? Jake Curtin says we're on the beach. We absolutely are, Jake. What I hear was saying DCL broke down in tears last week when he got injured. Yeah, so he's not in a good place. Jason Scott says Luton could borrow Wembley for the season.
They're not far away, are they? Genuinely, they're not far away. Not that they would sell it out or anything, but they're not far away.
Jason Scott says if Luton come up, they could hire Coventry's grounds.
Can you imagine that? Oh my
God.
Yeah, that'll be I don't know if Mike actually owns the ground, the Coventry ground, but that would be very much a Mike Ashley thing.
Yeah,
if he would do that. If he does, someone will correct me on that because I don't know the details.
Yeah, but I think that's us for questions, Pete. I think we're all done and dusted.
Well, as we get towards the end of the show, we always do those all-important predictions. So, Chris, I'm going to come to you first. On Sunday, it's a late kickoff. I think was it 4:30 kickoff? So at 7, 8 o'clock, let's say. What do you think the final score will be?
And Chris is having a long think there, sort of a frozen
I
think.
genuinely thought he was having a long thing in his head, but his camera's gone at the last moment.
Yeah,
I
he's
was
back
like,
in.
"Is he back?
A minute of
I'm
time.
back. I'm back.
He's
I'm
back."
back. I don't know what happened. It was just as you asked as well. What do you think the score to be at 6:30? And then it just cut off.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say it's a really difficult one to call this. I'm going to say 0-0. I don't think I predict many 0-0s. I'm going to say 0-0. Yeah.
Ooh, you're a fighter.
Yeah.
Okay, he's gone for it. Hey, I might as well not load up the car with petrol for Sunday. I might as well
No point going.
cancel my ticket, my train ticket.
Two 0-0s in a row. 2 0-0s in a row for Newcastle.
Yeah.
Yeah, there
Surprised
you
me.
go. Well, when was the last time that happened, Keith? You'll probably know.
I think there were a few. Wasn't there a few? Well, there certainly were a few draws in sort of January, weren't there? January, February. I think Arsenal, and Leeds were close together, weren't they?
Oh yeah, they were
The
back
Christmas
to back.
New Year
Actually,
period,
yeah.
yeah.
You're absolutely right. 0-0. Oh yeah, what a shout!
0-0. 0-0. Yeah.
Nick, we'll come to you. From a Chelsea perspective, what do you think the score is going to be on Sunday evening?
Well, I mean, Chris, we've not kept a clean sheet yet under Frank Lampard, so I'd back you to score. Honestly, as long as we end up scoring more goals than Erling Haaland this season, I'm kind of okay. Where I said we've scored 37, he's on 36. If we can maybe get one against you lot, maybe two to make it safe. But honestly, I know Keith did his stats wrong, and you do truly have an abysmal record at the Bridge. But like I've probably said to so many different fans this season, you're never going to have a better chance to win at Stamford Bridge than you will now. We're really not very good. I know it's depressing because I predicted we'd lose when I came on last time, and I'm probably predicting another loss here, to be honest.
Wow.
Like, honestly, I would be stunned if you don't score. Like Isak, Wilson, Almiron, or if it's St. Maximan, like there's quality in there to score. You're decent at set pieces. We are a shambles at set pieces since Frank has come in. Honestly, fun day in the sun for you boys. I reckon you will win 2-0.
Oh, wow. 2-0. Wow. And to coin a phrase is absolutely right. A clean sheet could potentially give us the best defensive. Well, it would. You're absolutely right. Clean sheet would give us the best defensive record in the league because Man City conceded against Brighton midweek, which puts them. They've scored one more goal, or they've conceded one more goal than us. So we are now back to having the best defensive record in the Premier League. A clean sheet would ensure that. So you're absolutely right. It's coin a phrase, and if Nick's prediction comes through, which I wish it will.
I don't know. I don't know how strong your team is or like how you take it. But that's obviously I'm going off basically the Newcastle I've watched or seen for 36, 37 weeks of this season. Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if we could get a goal. It'd be nice if we could win a game at Stamford Bridge under Frank Lampard because we've not done that yet in his second spell. But unfortunately, Nottingham Forest was our best chance and we blew that. So
don't start changing it now, Nick. You predicted a 2-0 loss.
Yeah, it will be 2. I think it'll be 2. Maybe if you're feeling generous, maybe if you're slacking, we might get a goal. But 2-0 or 2-1, it'll probably be 2-0 to you.
Maybe a 5-1. I'd be feeling generous and. We're happy to concede one. But look, for me, I'm gonna be generous to you. I'm gonna give you a goal. I'm gonna say it's gonna be 2-1 to Newcastle. I think Newcastle will win Stamford Bridge. If there's any time to win at Stamford Bridge, it's now. I think we've got a couple of players missing, but a couple of players I think will be hungry to prove their worth. I think Callum Wilson's going to be wanting to get to 20 goals this season before he sets off for his holidays. And I think there'll be players that will be gunning for goals and gunning for a positive result. So I do think Newcastle could potentially win 2-1. However, what does the predictor say? Mr. Statman Keith, 00 Stato, the predictor, Drax, if you want to call him, Drax with the facts. What do you predict for this game on Sunday? To be fair, Chris, he's been on the money.
I called the Liverpool game right on the last show as well. I said it could be a 1-1. and it happened. And I was overjoyed on Saturday evening when we finished a 1-1. Well, this is going to be a changed game, really. It's really difficult to call this one. I know Chelsea have been in awful form, but there is a few changes. Newcastle's also going to be a changed team. There's going to be Chelsea players who are going to put themselves in the shop window as well, aren't there, really? Because they are going to have a sell-off. So there's going to be players in front at the end of the season who will want to play well, really, to get the next move. So I think this is going to be a wildly entertaining game for you, Pete, on Sunday when you're down there at Stamford Bridge. And I think Newcastle will end their losing streak at Stamford Bridge. And I think the score will end. That will be the score if you can see it.
Desmond. Little Desmond.
Desmond, yeah. I think goals flying in everywhere, and it'll finish 2-2.
Panic over, everyone in the chat. He didn't say we're going to lose, which was what we thought it was. Is that we're going to lose our losing run if you were right in what you were saying, and it's going to be a Desmond 2-2. Let's see. He's not been far off the money so far. But yeah, the predictions are in, guys. Put your predictions in the chat. There's a few that are already putting theirs in already. What you think Newcastle United against Chelsea result is going to be. But guys, the predictions are in, and that signs off a fantastic away day season on Loaded Mag NUFC. I have to say a huge thank you to Nick from the Chelsea, that Chelsea pod. You guys are on Twitter as well. Check these guys out on their channel, a fantastic channel. It's been an absolute pleasure for both games having you on representing us as our opposition fans, Nick, and thank you for coming on again tonight. I have to say massive thanks to Keith, Statman, Double O Stato, Jaws, Draxter with a facts predictor, whatever you want to call him, as what's been said in the chat as well. Regardless of what his name's been called, regardless of his predictions, his stats are absolutely unmatched on any Newcastle United YouTube channel, that's for sure. And we appreciate all your efforts over the course of the season. And look, from myself and Chris's point of view, and from the other lads that have joined us on away days, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on over the course of the season. 2 seasons now, sharing your stats with us. So a massive thanks for everything you've done, mate, over the course of the season. And it's been a pleasure, as always. And look, the old Brandy and Blaze, always in business. Always a pleasure, never a chore. Chris, absolutely spot on, mate. In the way days, wouldn't be the same without you, that's for sure. And last but not least, every single person in the chat that has joined us over the course of the season. So many have come and joined us tonight. I really do appreciate it. Not always possible on a Friday night. People are out drinking, going for meals, spending time with the family, all the rest of it. But the fact that we've had over 120, 30 plus that have come and joined us at any one time during the show tonight. Thank you for all your support over the course of the season. It would not be the same without you. Your questions, your comments, your support for the visiting opposition fans, and of course your support for us as a channel. It means the absolute world. And look, the away days will continue next season. We don't stop. We won't stop. And there'll be plenty more coming from an away days perspective. But look, just to give you a little flavour of what's to come on the channel in the next few days, we of course will be having a loaded reaction show on Sunday. Times and show times will be confirmed later on. So keep an eye on YouTube. Make sure you've clicked that signal bell to make sure that you are aware of any show that comes available. We've got the man, the myth, or should I say, let me just go back 1 second. Sorry, Chris. The man, the myth, the legend, Sean Casey will be joining us with all of his transfer information for what he knows and what he assumes could well be our summer movement. He'll be back. And we'll have also a return of Antonio Mango. He will be mangoing us with his opinions on key positions for Newcastle United in the summer, and giving us a lowdown on his thoughts on who would be the best match for our club in terms of strengthening this season. That's just a little snippet of what's to come on Loaded Mag NUFC over the course of the next week, and we will be very, very busy over the summer with more content. So keep an eye on us, keep that notification bell going, and of course, like and subscribe. Anyone that hasn't clicked the like button on the way out, make sure you do so in support of the channel. That's for sure. And of course, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. As Chris quite rightly and quite well timely put on the screen, make sure you come and support us in everything that we do. Chris, anything to say before we head out?
No, just a big thank you to you, Pete. Pete, as you all will know, Pete introduced Away Days, and it's just grown from strength to strength. Absolutely fantastic show. Love having all the Away Day guests on. Really sad that it's the last one of the season, but with the anticipation will build, and I can't wait until we start up again in August for the Away Days.
Definitely. We'll be back with a lot more. But until then, you guys take care. Have a fantastic Friday evening. And of course, we do love playing away. Signaled out. And how do you like that?